As the first raw images of the disaster began circulating online, the world stood still in shock. A video taken from Nemuro, a coastal city in Japan, captured the precise moment when a massive tsunami wave slammed into a fishing port. Boats, trucks, and entire warehouses were swept away in seconds. People fled in terror toward higher ground. The sounds in the footage, children crying, sirens wailing, the roar of the sea, felt like the soundtrack of an apocalypse. On Douyin, China's version of TikTok, similar videos surfaced but vanished within minutes. One user posted footage from Ningbo, showing floodwaters breaching sea barriers and surging through farmlands in residential neighborhoods. In the caption, they wrote, "We weren't warned. It happened too fast." That video was deleted within 12 minutes, and the account disappeared shortly afterward. While Japan's government held frequent press conferences and released real-time tsunami models, China remained eerily silent during the first 6 hours. No concrete updates were provided. No visual data shared with the public, only vague, official statements urging citizens to stay calm, avoid panic, and not spread misinformation. Yet, the reality on the ground could not be concealed by censorship or empty words. In provinces like Fujian and Zhejiang, entire fishing communities were flooded. Saltwater surged inland more than a kilometer in some areas, contaminating freshwater supplies, killing marine life en masse, and crippling local infrastructure. The transportation systems were paralyzed, emergency routes submerged, and communication lines faltered as panic set in. The damage was not limited to villages. In Ningbo, a crucial cargo port along China's eastern seaboard, dozens of shipping containers toppled like dominoes. Port warehouses flooded under seawater, halting port operations for days and triggering ripple effects in supply chains worldwide. Local businesses lost millions overnight. Industrial parks and export zones, once symbols of China's economic power, stood silent and soaked under nearly 1.5 meters of seawater. Experts later confirmed that the tsunami had been caused by a powerful seafloor rupture, generating waves that sped across the Pacific at nearly 700 kilometers per hour. Japan had only 20 minutes before impact. China, barely an hour. For those living near the shoreline, that hour could have been the difference between safety and tragedy, if only warnings had been issued in time. And so the question remains, how could China, with its vast satellite systems, AI networks, and high-tech disaster monitoring tools, fail to warn its citizens in a timely manner? A former employee from China's National Meteorological Center, speaking anonymously, revealed a sobering truth. The data had been available, but bureaucratic delays and rigid authorization procedures slowed everything down, even in the face of imminent danger. The decision to publish life-saving information was entangled in layers of approvals. It's not about saving lives, the employee said. It's about avoiding political consequences. As the hours passed, the damage deepened. Over 900,000 people were affected by the tsunami's impact on the Chinese coast. At least 300,000 had to be evacuated urgently. More than 1,500 homes were damaged or destroyed. Multiple seawalls collapsed, overwhelmed by the pressure of the tide. Entire communities, especially on remote islands and less developed coastal regions, were cut off completely. They had no power, no clean water, and no communication. The silence around them was more terrifying than the roar of the waves. Many began to question the effectiveness of China's heavily advertised infrastructure projects, its mega dams, concrete sea barriers, and so-called flood control miracles. When the ocean rose, none of them held. The very monuments to human engineering were rendered useless in minutes, exposing the fragility of mankind's attempts to control nature. A professor from the University of Tokyo, reflecting on the events, remarked that no nation is strong enough to conquer nature. All we can do is be honest, act quickly, and give people the chance to save themselves. Transparency, he said, is a survival tool, not a luxury. This tsunami became a brutal case study of two neighboring nations responding to the same threat in entirely different ways. In Japan, preparation proved vital. Real-time alerts were sent through television, mobile phones, and public address systems. Evacuation drills paid off. Families reached designated safety zones within minutes. The death toll remained low, thanks to years of investment in education, infrastructure, and a culture of accountability. In China, the lack of transparency, the suppression of information, and the slow emergency response turned a preventable crisis into a national trauma. Trust in government authorities plummeted. Local officials scrambled to restore order while being overwhelmed by chaos. For many citizens, the greatest fear was not the sea, it was the silence. The absence of guidance, the chilling realization that they had been left on their own. Two nations, one tsunami, two paths, one led to safety, the other to suffering. But this is no longer just a story about earthquakes and tsunamis. It is about how leadership defines destiny in moments of crisis. It is about whether governments choose to protect their people, or protect their image, whether they empower citizens with truth, or abandon them to silence. As the waters slowly receded and the waves calmed, millions of people in both Japan and China still could not sleep at night. Mud clogged the streets, oil slicks stained the beaches, fishing boats lay stranded atop buildings. Children stared blankly into the ruins of their homes, clutching what few belongings they could rescue. Nature does not ask permission to strike, but we, human beings, must decide how we respond. Do we build systems that save lives, or systems that protect reputations? Do we act, or do we wait? Do we trust our people with the truth, or do we bury it beneath bureaucracy? When the sea rises again, as it surely will, what will we have learned? On July 30th, 2025, what began as an ordinary morning in Russia's Far East quickly turned catastrophic. A massive magnitude 8.8 earthquake struck off the coast of the Kamchatka Peninsula, one of the strongest quakes in decades. Within minutes, Pacific-wide tsunami warning systems lit up red, and then, like a roaring beast awakened from the deep, the sea surged, swallowing everything in its path. In Japan, a nation still haunted by the 2011 tsunami disaster, memories of destruction returned instantly. The northern prefectures of Hokkaido and the Hoku shook violently from aftershocks. Residents of coastal towns like Miyako and Kamchatka began immediate evacuation. Sirens wailed, loudspeakers screamed warnings, and then the waves came. Walls of water over 3 meters high slammed into the northern coastline, flooding ports, fishing villages, and entire neighborhoods. Meanwhile, on the other side of the East China Sea, China also began to feel the far-reaching impact of this natural disaster. Coastal provinces such as Zhejiang, Fujian, and parts of Shanghai declared emergency alerts. Over 900,000 people were affected, with tens of thousands forced to evacuate to higher ground in anticipation of tidal surges and irregular wave patterns. Videos flooded the internet, water engulfing streets. Ships tossed like toys. Vehicles swept away by surging currents. The damage wasn't just physical. The fear was palpable. After months of floods, storms, and economic stress, people's nerves had been stretched to their limits. In Shanghai, one of Asia's most developed cities, residents rushed to stockpile food and clean water. Power outages became a serious threat. Public transport shut down. Over 300 flights from Pudong International Airport were cancelled, as authorities braced for possible quakes and strong tidal disturbances. In Japan, Prime Minister Kishida gave a short but resolute statement. We must not allow another 2011. The Japanese self-defense forces were immediately deployed, helicopters, patrol boats, emergency medics mobilized within the hour. But in China, the response was different. Information was scarce. Official statements came late, vague, and often contradictory. Multiple social media users reported that the keywords "Tsunami China" were being censored. Videos uploaded to Douyin and TikTok were taken down within minutes. Why? Was the government afraid that footage of chaos and confusion would spark backlash? Many claimed they received no warning at all. A woman in Chenzhou, Fujian province, said, "I only knew there was a tsunami when water started pouring into our house. No sirens, No evacuation orders. I had to carry my elderly mother onto the roof to survive. This raises a chilling question. How can a nation that pours billions into AI surveillance, satellites, and facial recognition fail to issue timely warnings to its citizens during a life-threatening event? In contrast, Japan, hit just as hard, issued continuous updates, coordinated evacuations with precision, and activated real-time data for its entire coastline. Despite battling energy crises and the lingering trauma of past disasters, they still managed a transparent and coordinated response. China, meanwhile, scrambled. It hesitated.